What happens when a respected bishop finally says out loud what many church insiders have been whispering for years? In a shocking public moment, a prominent bishop directly calls out Jamal Bryant and Marvin Sapp, accusing them of turning the pulpit into a platform for controversy, money, and blurred moral lines. This isn't gossip. This isn't rumor. These are statements made on record. And what he revealed has sent shockwaves through the Black church and Christian community. Stay with me, because the deeper we go, the more uncomfortable the truth becomes. This situation has quickly become one of the most talked about controversies in modern church leadership, and it raises serious questions about accountability, influence, and integrity at the highest levels of ministry. Today, we're breaking down exactly why this bishop decided to publicly confront Jamal Bryant and Marvin Sapp, what statements were made, and why this moment is being described as a turning point for the church world. We'll look at documented sermons, public interviews, social media reactions, and past controversies connected to both men, separating emotion from evidence. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of what was said, why it matters, and why so many believers feel this confrontation was long overdue. And trust me, once you hear what comes next, you'll understand why this debate isn't going away anytime soon. The controversy officially ignited when a well-known bishop, respected for his conservative stance on doctrine and church order, publicly addressed what he called a dangerous shift in modern ministry leadership. During a sermon that was later clipped and widely shared online, the bishop did not speak in vague terms or coded language. He clearly named Jamal Bryant and Marvin Sapp, something many pastors have avoided for years out of fear, loyalty, or backlash. According to the bishop, the issue was not personal dislike, but pattern-based behavior. He accused both men of using their platforms in ways that blur the line between spiritual leadership and personal branding. In Jamal Bryant's case, the bishop referenced his long history of controversial leadership decisions, including public criticism over church finances, political activism from the pulpit, and past personal scandals that remain unresolved in the eyes of many believers. The bishop stated that when a pastor becomes more famous for headlines than holiness, the church suffers. He then shifted to Marvin Sapp, a move that visibly stunned the congregation. Marvin Sapp has long been viewed as untouchable due to his legendary gospel music career. However, the bishop pointed to Sapp's recent public statements and moments where ministry events appeared to prioritize money, access, and exclusivity over pastoral care. He referenced viral clips that sparked outrage, including situations where congregants were pressured financially during church services, leading many online to question whether worship had been replaced with performance and profit. What made this call out especially explosive was the timing. This wasn't said in private meetings or behind closed doors. It happened openly, knowing full well it would circulate on social media. The bishop explained that silence from church leaders has allowed what he called celebrity Christianity to grow unchecked. He argued that when pastors are treated like stars, correction disappears, accountability weakens, and the congregation pays the price spiritually. Social media reaction was immediate and divided. Some praised the bishop for saying what others were afraid to say, calling him bold, courageous, and necessary in a compromised era. Others accused him of jealousy, bitterness, or trying to stay relevant by attacking bigger names. Clips of the sermon spread rapidly across YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, pulling millions of views within days and igniting heated debates in comment sections. But here's where things get even more interesting. While many assumed Jamal Bryant and Marvin Sapp would ignore the comments, insiders began hinting that this public confrontation touched a nerve much deeper than anyone realized. Behind the scenes, pressure started building, private conversations were reportedly happening, and the silence from both men became louder than any response. To understand why the bishop's words carried so much weight, you have to look closely at Jamal Bryant's history in ministry and the repeated controversies that have followed him over the years. Jamal Bryant is not a small figure in the church world. He is a nationally recognized pastor, activist, author, and media personality whose influence stretches far beyond his congregation. That level of visibility brings power, but it also brings scrutiny. The bishop referenced what he called recurring patterns rather than isolated mistakes. Jamal Bryant's leadership has long been criticized for blending political activism with preaching in ways some believers feel overshadow biblical teaching. While supporters argue that faith should address social justice and public policy, critics claim the pulpit has increasingly become a political stage. The bishop suggested that when sermons feel more like rallies, the spiritual mission of the church gets diluted. Financial concerns were another major issue raised. Over the years, Jamal Bryant's churches have faced public questions about fundraising campaigns, spending priorities, and transparency. Viral moments, including ambitious fundraising goals announced from the pulpit, sparked online debates about whether generosity was being encouraged or pressured. The bishop pointed to these moments as examples of how church culture can shift when growth and visibility become more important than accountability. Personal controversies also played a role in shaping public perception. Jamal Bryant's past marital issues were widely discussed in both church circles and mainstream media. While many believe in forgiveness and restoration, the bishop questioned whether proper time for healing, repentance, and rebuilding trust was ever fully honored before Bryant returned to prominent leadership roles. According to the bishop, restoration without accountability sends the wrong message to both leaders and congregants. What made this section of the bishop's message especially uncomfortable was his claim that Jamal Bryant represents a larger trend. He argued that modern megachurch culture rewards charisma over character and reach over righteousness. In his view, Jamal Bryant is not the root problem, but a visible example of a system that promotes influence faster than integrity can keep up. Public reaction to this part of the critique was intense. Some former members and church insiders began sharing their own experiences online, describing feelings of confusion, spiritual burnout, and disappointment. Others rushed to Jamal Bryant's defense, accusing critics of ignoring the positive impact of his activism, community programs, and national influence. Yet, the most telling detail was Jamal Bryant's response, or lack of one. Instead of directly addressing the bishop's claims, Bryant continued posting inspirational messages, public appearances, and sermons that seemed untouched by the controversy. To supporters, this silence signaled maturity. To critics, it felt like avoidance. And just when it seemed like the focus would stay on Jamal Bryant, attention suddenly shifted. Because while his name dominated the headlines, many were quietly asking an even more uncomfortable question. If Jamal Bryant was being challenged for leadership and accountability, why was Marvin Sapp, a gospel icon, now being pulled into the same conversation? What the bishop revealed next forced people to rethink everything they thought they knew about worship, money, and power in the church. Marvin Sapp is a name almost synonymous with gospel excellence. His career spans decades, from chart-topping albums to sold-out concerts, and he is revered for songs that have ministered to millions worldwide. To question Marvin Sapp publicly, as the bishop did, is almost unthinkable to many in the gospel community. That's why this part of the sermon shocked even seasoned church watchers. The bishop highlighted what he called a subtle shift in Sapp's ministry approach over recent years. While never accused of personal scandal like some others in the spotlight, Sapp's ministry decisions, concert-style services, and increasingly high-profile events began raising questions. Critics, including the bishop, argue that when worship starts to look more like performance, spiritual authenticity can get compromised. And when concerts and events prioritize ticket sales and VIP experiences, it opens the door for criticism about whether the ministry is still serving God or commercial interests. Another concern raised was transparency. While Sapp's ministry has undoubtedly done tremendous work in communities, some insiders hinted at a lack of clarity about financial operations, event management, and church projects. The bishop's point was not to accuse Sapp of wrongdoing, but to highlight how celebrity pastors, regardless of their intentions, operate in spaces where accountability often becomes blurry. What made the bishop's critique even more striking was the comparison to Jamal Bryant. While Bryant's controversies are more public and documented, Sapp's influence is quieter but no less potent. The bishop argued that when influential leaders, even ones revered for decades, are unchallenged, it sets a precedent. The message sent to younger pastors and congregants is that influence can outweigh integrity and that fame can shield you from scrutiny. The public reaction to these remarks was immediate and heated. Social media exploded with debates. Fans defended Sapp vigorously, citing his decades of ministry, charity work, and life-changing music. Critics countered that reverence should not make one immune to accountability, no matter how celebrated. Comment threads were filled with passionate arguments, with some church leaders privately expressing agreement with the bishop's stance, but too afraid to say it publicly. And here's where things take an unexpected twist. According to sources who follow gospel ministry closely, the bishop hinted that there are behind-the-scenes tensions between Sapp and other leaders in the community that the public has never seen. Rumors suggest disagreements over church direction, event management, and even theological approaches that have quietly simmered for years. If true, it implies that this public call-out was only the tip of the iceberg. Just when it seemed the controversy was contained to social media debates and online chatter, whispers began about a possible direct response from Marvin Sapp himself. Could he address these accusations head-on, or would his silence speak louder than any public statement? And more importantly, what would happen to the broader gospel community if other leaders started following the bishop's example of openly addressing celebrity pastors? The answers to these questions could reshape the landscape of modern ministry in ways no one fully expected. Once the bishop's sermon went viral, the conversation didn't just stay online. It spilled over into congregations, podcasts, radio shows, and even mainstream media. Leaders from other churches began weighing in, some cautiously agreeing with the bishop's points about accountability, and others warning against publicly calling out respected pastors. The divide became stark. One side argued that speaking truth is essential to preserving spiritual integrity, while the other insisted that public confrontations risk damaging unity and spreading division. Church insiders noted that this debate wasn't only about Jamal Bryant or Marvin Sapp. It highlighted a larger problem in modern ministry: the rise of celebrity culture in the church. Influential pastors are often seen as untouchable, with fame, book deals, and speaking tours providing them a level of authority that surpasses congregational oversight. The bishop's sermon, in that sense, became a spark for a broader conversation about the balance between influence and accountability in church leadership. Social media reactions were explosive. Hashtags like church accountability, celebrity pastors, and truth in ministry began trending within hours. Former congregants shared personal stories online, some praising the bishop's courage, while others criticized him for airing what they called private matters in public. YouTube clips of the sermon racked up hundreds of thousands of views, with comment sections flooded with debates over morality, leadership, and the role of fame in ministry. What made the situation even more complex were whispers of private meetings happening behind the scenes. According to church insiders, Jamal Bryant's team and Marvin Sapp's representatives were reportedly discussing how to respond or whether to respond at all. In some circles, silence was seen as the most strategic approach. while others argued that ignoring the bishop's claims could allow narratives to spiral unchecked. The tension created a sense of anticipation across the church community. Would either pastor finally address the claims head-on, or would this controversy remain unresolved, simmering quietly but shaping public perception for years to come? Financial transparency also became a talking point. Some critics used this moment to call for independent audits and clearer reporting for megachurch finances. The bishop's sermon reminded congregants and leaders alike that influence without accountability can lead to serious consequences, not just reputationally, but spiritually. And here's the cliffhanger that keeps everyone talking. Sources hinted at yet another layer of complexity, a growing network of leaders who quietly support the bishop's stance, but are waiting for the right moment to speak publicly. If these leaders decide to step forward, it could trigger a chain reaction, exposing more stories of unchecked influence, blurred ethics, and controversies that have long been kept behind closed doors. Could this be the beginning of a larger reckoning in the church world? This moment is more than just a viral sermon. It might mark a shift in how accountability, celebrity, and integrity are handled in modern ministry. And just when you think you've heard it all, new details continue to emerge, suggesting that the story is far from over. The bishop's bold confrontation has sparked conversations that go far beyond social media. Church leaders, theologians, and everyday believers are now asking difficult questions about leadership, influence, and spiritual accountability. Some see this as a wake-up call, an opportunity for the church to reassess how celebrity culture is shaping ministry. Others worry about the division it may cause, questioning whether public call-outs could fracture communities and erode trust in spiritual leadership. One of the most profound impacts has been on public perception. While gospel music and megachurch ministries have long held cultural influence, this controversy has shined a spotlight on the pressures that come with fame. Followers are beginning to question whether popularity and spiritual authority should be treated as inseparable, or if charisma alone can sometimes overshadow integrity. The bishop's statements forced many congregants to reevaluate their loyalty. Can one respect a pastor for their talent while also holding them accountable for actions that may compromise spiritual principles? Meanwhile, Jamal Bryant and Marvin Sapp continue to navigate the storm carefully. Bryant's team reportedly emphasized ministry work and outreach projects, projecting stability and focus on community impact. Sapp, meanwhile, maintained a quieter presence, continuing to release music and participate in church events, leaving many to wonder whether silence is strategic or reflective of deeper contemplation. Either way, both men are under unprecedented scrutiny, proof that influence comes with accountability, whether public or private. The ripple effects are already visible across the broader church ecosystem. Young pastors and emerging leaders are taking notice, with some openly discussing the importance of balancing fame, wealth, and ministry responsibility. Sermons across the country now include references to accountability, transparency, and avoiding the pitfalls of celebrity culture. In many ways, this single sermon by the bishop is catalyzing a conversation that could shape the future of how ministries operate, not just for decades, but potentially generations. And the tension continues to build. As the bishop's message circulates, more insiders are rumored to be preparing their own statements, testimonies, or evidence about the impact of celebrity pastors on congregations. If these voices emerge publicly, it could escalate the debate even further, revealing stories and patterns that have long been whispered behind the scenes. The church world, which often prizes discretion and decorum, may soon face a reckoning where silence is no longer an option.